The bowl slipped from my hands and shattered on the kitchen floor. The crash of the ceramic echoed like thunder in the silence of my house, but I barely noticed. A sharp pain cut through my abdomen, as if a knife had been driven in and twisted inside me. The air rushed out of my lungs, my legs gave way. I clung to the counter, but it was useless. I slid to the cold tiles, my cheek pressed against them, breath shallow and ragged. My name is Helen. I'm 67 years old, widowed for almost 5, and I live alone in the small house my husband and I built through 40 years of marriage. I thought I had faced the worst pain of my life when I buried Francis. But that night, crumpled on the kitchen floor, I learned that physical pain could mix with something even crueler, loneliness. With trembling hands, I reached for the phone I had left on the table. I dialed my son, David. Once, twice, 3 times. Voicemail. My breathing grew heavier, my eyes blurred with tears. I needed him. I just wanted to hear his voice, to know that, as he had promised his father on his deathbed, he would always take care of Mom. But he didn't answer. Each second stretched the pain further. I thought about giving up, but the instinct to survive was louder. I dialed 911 and managed to mumble, "Pain, abdomen alone." Minutes later, I heard the sirens. Paramedics rushed in through the unlocked door. They lifted me onto the stretcher, wrapped me in thin, disinfectant-scented blankets, and hurried me away. On the ride to the hospital, my phone vibrated again. Not David. A message from my neighbor, Clara. "Helen, have you seen what Ava posted? Stay strong, dear. I'm here if you need anything. Ava, my daughter-in-law, the woman who always greeted me with artificial smiles and syrupy words laced with venom." Even in pain, I gripped the phone, desperate to know what Clara meant. I opened the link, and there was Ava, looking into the camera, perfectly staged tears glistening in her eyes. "Friends, I'm devastated," she said. "My poor mother-in-law refuses to accept help. She insists on living alone. She won't sell the house. She refuses treatment. We've tried everything. It's so painful to watch someone we love destroy themselves. We've set up a fundraiser to cover her medical bills and make sure she gets into a safe place where she'll be properly cared for. Any donation helps." The caption below the video stabbed me. "Campaign for the health of Helen Carter. Help save my mother-in-law." And there were numbers. More than $20,000 raised already. I was still being carried to the hospital, and she had already turned my pain into an online spectacle. If you're watching this, subscribe and tell me in the comments where you're from. Because this is the story of how physical pain was only the beginning, and how I discovered that the deepest wound wasn't in my body, but in the betrayal inside my own family. In the ER, white lights cut into my eyes. A young doctor, calm and firm, explained gallstones. One lodged in the wrong place, causing the collapse. I'd need surgery soon, but the crisis was under control. Relief came with the medication, but my mind spun in chaos. Hours later, when I woke, a social worker sat beside my bed, tablet in hand, glasses sliding down her nose. "Mrs. Carter, we need to confirm some information. Your son submitted documents last night naming him as your legal medical proxy." My mind, foggy from painkillers, took a moment. "Excuse me." She turned the screen toward me. There it was, a medical power of attorney form, with my name scribbled at the bottom. My signature, or something that looked like it. The witness line was blank. "I didn't sign this," I whispered, anger rising through the shock. The social worker frowned. "It's unusual, but if you are lucid, you have every right to invalidate this document. Still, the hospital has to be cautious, you understand?" Right then, I realized Ava wasn't just putting on a show online. She and David had planned this. They wanted control over my life, my choices, my home. Back in my house days later, recovering, reality hit harder. My computer was full of messages from friends and acquaintances. I saw the campaign. "Dear, I donated $50. Stay strong. Helen, we're praying for you. You're lucky to have such a wonderful daughter-in-law." The tears came, not from gratitude, but humiliation. My suffering had been monetized. My dignity sold. And the cruelest part, David hadn't shown up even once at the hospital. Not a single visit. Not a single text. Ava held all the power, and she had written my story her way, for the world to believe. But she hadn't counted on one thing: I was still alive. And I still had fight left in me. That same night, I sat in the armchair in my living room, clutching the wooden recipe box my husband Francis had left me, and cried. It was where he had stored family secrets, little notes, and scraps of memory. As I ran my fingers over the false bottom, Something only I knew about, I felt a bump. There was an envelope hidden there. My hand shook as I opened it. Inside was a letter from Francis, dated months before his death. Helen, if one day you feel alone, deceived, or cornered, open this envelope. I don't want you to suffer more than you must. There are documents here that can protect you, names of people you can trust, and most of all, never forget. You have always been stronger than you think. Behind the letter were 2 business cards, one for an elder law attorney, the other for a private investigator. My prudent Francis had foreseen that someday I might need protection, not from strangers, but from my own blood. I pressed the cards to my chest and felt my grief transform into something else. Resolve. If David and Ava thought I was weak, they were about to learn that I carried more than wrinkles and pain. I carried memory, dignity, and now a flame lit by the man who, even in death, was still protecting me. Next morning, I sat at my kitchen table with the envelope spread open before me. Francis's handwriting stared back at me, steady and precise. Each loop and curve a reminder of the man who had spent a lifetime protecting our family. The 2 business cards felt heavier than they should have. On one, in bold letters, Daniel Harris, attorney at law, elder rights and estate protection. On the other, Angela Ruiz, private investigations. I traced the names with my fingertip. Francis had never left things to chance. If he had put these cards here, it meant he had expected something. Maybe not this exact betrayal, but enough to know that our son or someone around him might someday turn against me. I felt a wave of nausea, not from the surgery, but from the thought. Had Francis known? Had he seen David drifting away, letting Ava's honeyed words shape his loyalties? Had he noticed the way she looked at my house, my savings, as though they were already hers? But she hadn't counted on one thing: I was still alive, and I still had fight left in me. That same night, I sat in the armchair in my living room, clutching the wooden recipe box my husband Francis had left me, and cried. It was where he had stored family secrets, little notes, and scraps of memory. As I ran my fingers over the false bottom, something only I knew about, I felt a bump. There was an envelope hidden there. My hand shook as I opened it. Inside was a letter from Francis, dated months before his death. Helen, if one day you feel alone, deceived, or cornered, open this envelope. I don't want you to suffer more than you must. There are documents here that can protect you, names of people you can trust, and most of all, never forget. You have always been stronger than you think. Behind the letter were 2 business cards, one for an elder law attorney, the other for a private investigator. My prudent Francis had foreseen that someday I might need protection, not from strangers, but from my own blood. I pressed the cards to my chest and felt my grief transform into something else. Resolve. If David and Ava thought I was weak, they were about to learn that I carried more than wrinkles and pain. I carried memory, dignity, and now a flame lit by the man who, even in death, was still protecting me. Next morning, I sat at my kitchen table with the envelope spread open before me. Francis's handwriting stared back at me, steady and precise. Each loop and curve a reminder of the man who had spent a lifetime protecting our family. The 2 business cards felt heavier than they should have. On one, in bold letters, Daniel Harris, attorney at law, elder rights and estate protection. On the other, Angela Ruiz, private investigations. I traced the names with my fingertip. Francis had never left things to chance. If he had put these cards here, it meant he had expected something. Maybe not this exact betrayal, but enough to know that our son, or someone around him, might someday turn against me. I felt a wave of nausea, not from the surgery, but from the thought. Had Francis known? Had he seen David drifting away, letting Ava's honeyed words shape his loyalties? Had he noticed the way she looked at my house, my savings, as though they were already hers? By noon, I dialed the first number. Law offices of Daniel Harris. How may I help you? My throat tightened. Yes, this is Helen Carter. My late husband left me your card. He said you could help. There was a pause. Then a calm, measured voice answered. Mrs. Carter. Francis spoke with me before he passed. He wanted to make sure you'd have someone to call if anything ever threatened your security. Why don't you come in tomorrow morning? Bring any documents you have. We'll talk. Relief and dread mingled. I wasn't imagining this. Francis had prepared me for a war I didn't even know was coming. The next day, I dressed carefully, choosing a navy dress and pearl earrings Francis had always liked. I wanted to look composed, not broken. When I stepped into Daniel Harris's office, I smelled old leather and coffee. The walls were lined with books, real books, not just decorations. He stood as I entered, a man in his early 60s, with gray hair and eyes that studied without judgment. Mrs. Carter. He shook my hand firmly. Francis told me you were strong. He was right. The words cracked something inside me, but I swallowed the lump in my throat and sat down. I slid the forged power of attorney form across the desk. This, I said simply. Daniel adjusted his glasses. He scanned the paper, his frown deepening. This signature isn't yours. No. And the witness line is blank. That alone makes it invalid. But the intent, he looked up. This is serious, Mrs. Carter. If your son and daughter-in-law are submitting documents like this, they're building a case, likely to declare you incompetent and seize control of your assets. I felt my hands clench in my lap. Can they do that? They can try. But the law protects you if you fight back early. We'll file a notice of dispute with the hospital and create a legal record that your consent was never given. I'll also start preparing guardianship defense papers. Francis left me with some of your background already. Your medical records, your financial independence. He anticipated this. Tears burned my eyes. He knew. Daniel's expression softened. He suspected Ava might not have your best interests at heart. He worried about David too, though he hoped your son would choose better. He wanted to give you armor. Armor. That word settled in my chest like a promise. That evening, back home, I called the second number. The line clicked, and a brisk female voice answered. Angela Ruiz. My name is Helen Carter. My husband gave me your card before he died. He said if I ever felt threatened, you could help. There was a pause. Then her tone shifted to something warmer. Yes, Francis told me you were sharp and that you'd know when to call. What's happened? I explained everything. The forged papers, the online fundraiser, the absence of my son, the humiliation. She listened silently until I finished. Helen, she said firmly, this isn't just cruelty. This is financial abuse, elder exploitation, and it sounds orchestrated. I'll run a background check on Ava, see what she's been doing online, what account she's tied to. We'll follow the money from that fundraiser. If she's profiting from your pain, we'll find it. For the first time in days, I felt something like hope. The following week was a blur of recovery from surgery and whispered phone calls. Daniel filed motions to block any medical decisions David and Ava might attempt. Angela dug into Ava's digital footprint. 3 nights later, she called me with her first findings. Helen, are you sitting down? Yes. The fundraiser Ava started isn't going into a medical trust. It's being funneled into a joint account she shares with David. Travel, shopping, even a payment toward their mortgage, all linked to that account. And the worst part? She staged that video before your collapse. Metadata on the upload shows it was recorded the day before you fell ill. My breath caught. She planned it. Ava stepped forward before I could answer. Helen, we're only here because we care. You're not well. You collapsed. The hospital confirmed it. You can't keep living alone in this big house. It's dangerous. I straightened my back. I'm fine. The doctors cleared me. Surgery was successful. Ava's smile sharpened. For now. But what about next time? What if you fall and no one finds you? David and I have been talking, and we think it's best if you move in with us. My gut twisted. Move in with you? Just until things stabilize, David added, though his voice wavered. It's what Dad would want. The audacity made my skin burn. Don't you dare speak for your father. Ava waved her manicured hand dismissively. Helen, don't be dramatic. This house is too much for you. We've already spoken with an attorney about guardianship. We'll handle everything. You'll be safe. Provided for. The words dripped with false sweetness, but I caught the steel beneath them. Guardianship. Safe. Provided for. They were rescuing me. They were caging me. I met Ava's gaze, steady and cold. No. For the first time, her smile faltered. This is my home, I said firmly. I won't leave it. And if you try to take it from me, you'll regret it. David's eyes widened, but Ava's narrowed, glittering with malice. We'll see. They left without another word. But the chill they left behind lingered long after their car disappeared. That night, I called Daniel and Angela. They came to the house, I told them. They want guardianship. They want me out. Daniel's voice was steady. Then it's time we prepare for war. Angela added, and I'll make sure the world sees who they really are. I hung up, staring at Francis's picture on the mantel. I'll fight, I whispered. For you. For me. For the life we built. And I meant it. The following week, the world seemed to tilt further against me. I woke one morning to my phone buzzing with notifications. Clara, my neighbor, had texted again. Helen, please don't look at Facebook right now. Of course I looked. There she was, Ava. Perfect hair, perfect lighting, crocodile tears shining under her lashes. My friends, I can't stay silent anymore. Many of you know my mother-in-law collapsed last week. It's heartbreaking watching her deny the help she desperately needs. She refuses care, refuses to move in with us. We're terrified for her. Please, share this fundraiser. Every dollar ensures she's not left alone in that dangerous house. The post had over 5,000 shares. Thousands of comments poured in. You're an angel, Ava. Poor woman. Stubborn old people don't know what's best for them. Sending prayers and $100, dear. I scrolled until my hands shook. They had turned me into a caricature. A fragile old woman, too proud to see her own decline, saved only by her saintly daughter-in-law. But behind the screen, I knew the truth. Ava wasn't saving me. She was cashing in on me. I called Angela, my investigator, my voice trembling. She's weaponizing social media, I said. Angela's tone was sharp. Then we weaponized the truth. I've already traced $30,000 from the fundraiser into Ava's personal spending. Handbags, a luxury spa, and a down payment on a new SUV. She can't hide it. We'll collect screenshots, bank statements. She's burying herself. I exhaled slowly, trying to steady the rage pounding in my chest. And David? Angela hesitated. His name is on the joint account. Legally, he's complicit, whether he admits it or not. Hearing it aloud was like another stab. My son wasn't just silent, he was participating. The next blow came in the form of a letter. Thick paper, embossed seal, formal font. Notice of petition for guardianship, filed by David Carter and Ava Carter. I read it 3 times before the words sank in. They were moving forward. Not just whispers, not just threats. A legal petition filed with the court claiming I was unfit to manage my own affairs. Daniel Harris called me the moment he received a copy. Helen, don't panic. This is exactly why Francis prepared me for you. We'll contest it. Their petition is weak, built on manipulated narratives. But it does mean we're heading to court. Court, I repeated, my stomach twisting. Yes, but remember we have evidence. Their social media posts, the forged medical proxy, the fundraiser misuse. Ava and David think they're clever, but they've left a trail a mile wide. I sank into my armchair, clutching the receiver. Daniel. How did I raise a son who could do this to me? He was silent for a long moment before answering gently. Sometimes love blinds us to the people our children become. But it doesn't mean you failed. It means he chose. The truth was bitter, but it hardened me. Angela came by that evening, her leather satchel bulging with files. She spread them across my dining table, screenshots of Ava's posts, donor comments, bank transfers. This, she said, tapping the documents, is fraud. We'll show the court every dollar Ava siphoned off. We'll also show the timeline, the fact that her video was pre-recorded. It proves intent. I studied the photos. Ava at a boutique counter, swiping the fundraiser card. Ava at a spa, champagne flute in hand, tagged by a friend. Receipts printed with dates, amounts, locations. It was surreal. While I lay in a hospital bed, she'd been out celebrating on my name. Angela leaned closer. We can also subpoena the hospital. Their staff documented your competence. The fact that Ava and David tried to override your decisions with a forged form will look damning. For the first time, I allowed myself a small, grim smile. They wanted to paint me as weak. But maybe that was their mistake. They underestimated me. Angela's eyes gleamed. Exactly. Days passed. Ava's posts grew bolder. She uploaded a video tour of my house, claiming it was unsafe, full of hazards for an elderly woman. She showed the staircase, the old carpeting, the medicine cabinet. She broke into my home, I whispered when I saw it. Angela nodded. We'll add trespassing to the list. The comments poured in. This poor woman can't live there. Ava, you're such a blessing to her. I donated again. Each heart emoji, each donation tally, fueled my resolve. I wasn't going to let Ava turn my life into her paycheck. The court date loomed. Daniel prepared me with mock questions, calm but firm. They'll try to make you look confused, Helen, he warned. They'll twist your words, but answer clearly. Don't let them provoke you. I practiced, again and again, until my voice no longer shook when I said, I am competent. I manage my life, and I will not be stripped of my independence by fraud. The night before the hearing, I barely slept. Francis's letter lay on my nightstand. I touched the words again and again. You have always been stronger than you think. The courthouse smelled of polish and paper. Ava and David arrived in matching outfits, her in a crisp white blouse, him in a tailored suit. They looked like the picture of concerned family members. But when Ava's eyes met mine, I saw it. The flash of triumph, the glint of greed. Daniel leaned toward me. Stay calm. We'll expose them. The judge entered, a stern woman with sharp eyes. The hearing began. Ava took the stand first, her voice syrupy sweet. Your Honor, we only want what's best for Helen. She refuses care, lives alone in a hazardous environment, and endangers herself. We've tried to help, but she resists. It breaks our hearts. David nodded beside her, lips pressed in solemn agreement. Then Daniel rose. He called Angela to the stand. She presented the evidence, screenshots, bank statements, timestamps. This, she said, her voice ringing through the courtroom, is where Ava's fundraiser money went. Not to Helen's care, not to medical expenses, but to luxury purchases. And here, she held up documents, is proof that Ava uploaded her so-called emergency plea before Helen ever collapsed. This was premeditated manipulation. Gasps rippled through the courtroom. Ava's mask cracked, her face flushing. Daniel leaned forward, his voice steady. Your Honor, this is not care. This is exploitation. And Helen Carter deserves protection, not guardianship. The judge's eyes narrowed at Ava. For the first time, I felt the tide shift. But the war wasn't over. That night, after the hearing, I found a note slipped under my door. 4 words, scrawled in sharp ink. This isn't finished, Helen. The note sat on my kitchen table all night, its 4 words burning into my eyes every time I looked. This isn't finished, Helen. I snapped a photo and sent it to Angela. This isn't just intimidation, she said when she called back. It's escalation. File a report immediately and let me set up cameras. People who write things like this often want to make them real. By 9 in the morning, I was at the police station, handing the note to a weary officer who shrugged and muttered that it was probably just family drama. I walked out with a stamped paper that felt more like decoration than protection. When I returned home, Angela was waiting with 2 boxes of Wi-Fi cameras and a toolkit. She mounted them at every entry point, her movements precise, professional. They're expecting to control the narrative, she told me, screwing the last camera above my back door. But cameras don't lie. By the time we finished, it was past noon. That was when the knock came, 3 sharp bangs against the wood. On my porch stood 2 women and a man, badges hanging around their necks. Adult Protective Services, the lead one said. We received a complaint that you're living in unsafe conditions, refusing care, showing signs of confusion. The word struck like a slap. Complaint. Exactly the language Ava had been seeding online. Come in, I said evenly. Take a look for yourselves. I gave them the full tour. Handrails on the stairs, non-slip rugs, clearly labeled medication schedules taped to the fridge, smoke detectors with fresh batteries. Angela stood beside me, arms crossed like a silent guard. One of the women asked, "Do you cook for yourself?" "Yes," I said, opening the freezer to show neatly labeled meals. "Would you like to take one home?" Her lips twitched into a smile. By the time they left, their clipboards were full of notes, and I overheard one murmur to the other. This complaint smells like family retaliation. Angela grinned. They were expecting chaos. Instead, they got cake and order. That's a win. But the game wasn't slowing down. That afternoon, Daniel called. 2 emergency rulings just came down. First, the fundraiser account is officially frozen. No more withdrawals. Second, the judge has issued a preliminary order forbidding Ava from using your name or image in any campaign. Each violation comes with a fine. For the first time, a tiny crack appeared in Ava's glossy facade. And the guardianship petition? I asked. Hearing set in 2 weeks, Daniel said. But the judge's tone has shifted. He's no longer looking at you as the problem. He's looking at them. Relief fluttered inside me, fragile as glass. That night, one of Angela's new cameras caught headlights sweeping across my yard at 2:17 a.m. A rented white sedan slowed in front of my house. a phone screen glowing behind the windshield before it drove off. Angela ran the plate. It was rented yesterday, she told me, pulling up the record. By Ava. And at 2:31 a.m., I received a text alert from my bank. Someone tried to reset my password from a co-working office downtown. David's co-working office. At 9:12 that same morning, a fraudulent loan application appeared, using my house as collateral and my forged signature. They're trying to drown you in debt, Angela said grimly. Then they'll wave it around as proof you're incompetent. Classic setup. But the bank blocked it. And now, the attempt itself was evidence. The walls of their plan were closing in. A few days later, a local TV van parked outside. A young reporter leaned over my gate. Mrs. Carter? Donors are demanding answers. Would you like to speak on record? I thought of Ava's carefully staged tears, her influencer smile. Then I shook my head. Not today, I said. When I speak, it'll be with documents in hand. The reporter left disappointed, but the story still aired, with screenshots of Ava's shopping spree and court documents showing the fundraiser freeze. The comments beneath it weren't adoration this time. They were fury. I donated thinking it was for medical care, not spa trips. Where's the accountability? She filmed her at Miles' house without permission? That's abuse. For the first time, the tide was turning. Daniel arranged a strategy meeting. He brought Marina, the social worker who'd inspected my house. I'd like to testify, she said gently. My report is clear. You're competent. Your home is safe. False complaints like these are sadly common in financial abuse cases. The judge should hear it. Angela laid out her latest findings. Screenshots of Ava buying handbags with donor money. The video recorded a full day before my collapse, and the bank records of attempted fraud traced to David's login. They want to call this caregiving, Angela said. It's exploitation, pure and simple. Daniel nodded. We'll move not only to deny guardianship, but to request sanctions for abuse of process and a restraining order. The night before the next hearing, my phone buzzed with a message from David. Mom, can we meet? I agreed, on one condition, no Ava. We met at a worn-down diner he used to haunt during college. He looked nothing like the polished man in Ava's videos. His shirt was wrinkled, his eyes hollow. He clutched his coffee like it was the only thing tethering him to earth. I didn't know about the loan attempt, he said quietly. I didn't sign off on that. But you signed the guardianship petition, I replied. My voice wasn't angry, just tired. He winced. She convinced me. Said it was safer for you. I was scared, Mom. And when I'm scared, I fold. Fear I can forgive, I told him. But cowardice I cannot. If you love me, bring the truth to court. That's the only way forward. He looked at me with something raw, almost childlike. I have something. Not here. I'll send it tonight. Hours later, Angela and I sat side by side as the email arrived. Attached was a shaky video. Ava rehearsing her tearful emergency plea. Ring light glowing. David's voice behind the camera directing her to cry harder on the word campaign. The timestamp showed it was filmed a full day before my collapse. There was also an audio file. David's voice low and defeated. She doesn't need guardianship. Ava just turned it into a business. Angela slammed her hand on the table. This is the missing piece. Premeditation, recorded in his own voice. The next morning, an unmarked envelope slid under my door. Inside was a flash drive and a post-it note. If you want to end this, press play. I plugged it in, my heart pounding. The video was grainy but clear. A hidden camera inside Ava's own living room. She was on the phone, her voice sharp, smug. Of course I manipulated it. If you don't dramatize, no one donates. With her, everything pays. Relax, guardianship will go through. David always signs. If not, I'll cry on live stream. The recording ran 43 minutes. Every word a knife. Angela's eyes gleamed. Helen, this isn't evidence. This is dynamite. If we use it right, their entire circus collapses. Before I could answer, the landline rang. Caller ID flashed a name I hadn't seen in years. Francis Study. My late husband's old office line, still saved in the phone. I lifted the receiver with trembling hands. Silence. Then a click. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe it was everything. But tomorrow in court we would find out. By 9:15 the next morning, the courthouse hallway hummed like a hive. Heels clicking, doors slamming, people whispering into phones as if secrets could be bent into shape by sheer force of will. Ava arrived like a broadcast, not a person, camel coat over white dress, hair glossy as a perfume ad, chin tilted at the exact angle that said I'm the main character. She had two women with her in structured blazers and a man with an attaché case who introduced himself to Daniel as co-counsel. David trailed behind them, head down, tie crooked, like a punctuation mark that didn't know where to land. Angela squeezed my hand. "Breathe," she murmured. "They're bringing a camera crew in their heads. We're bringing documents." Inside Department 3, Judge Rao took the bench with a calm that felt like a warning. She had the kind of face that practitioners call evidentiary. Not cruel, not kind, just deeply uninterested in anything she couldn't write into an order. "This is Carter versus Carter. Petition for appointment of guardian," she said, scanning the file. "I've reviewed the preliminary submissions." Her eyes flicked to Ava's side. "Petitioner, you're up on the burden. Call your first witness." Ava's lawyer stood. "Your Honor, before we proceed, we have a brief statement to frame." "Counsel." Judge Rao interrupted without looking up. "This is not a press conference." "Witness, please." They called Ava first. Of course they did. She took the stand like a stage, hands folded, mascara heroic. Her lawyer guided her through softballs about caregiving and concern, about discovering troubling signs of my confusion, the burnt roast, the fainting, the alleged paranoia about passwords and cameras. "When you set up the fundraiser," the lawyer asked, "what was your intent?" "To keep Helen safe," Ava said, voice trembling on cue. "She wouldn't let us help. I tried everything. The internet, it was the only way to make people see." "Thank you." The lawyer turned, satisfied. "No further." "Actually," Judge Rao said, "I have a question." She slid a paper from the file. "You purchased a handbag for $2,200 from donor funds, correct?" Ava's mouth parted. "It was a gift for my mother, her birthday." That purchase occurred 5 hours after the campaign launched, before any disbursement to the respondent, and before any care plan, correct? Ava blinked. There was a delay with the bank, and And this spa charge? The judge tapped the page. $5.80. How does that relate to elder care? A flush climbed Ava's neck. Calming treatment. I was overwhelmed. Caregiver burnout is real. The judge made a note. You may step down. Samantha. No, not Samantha. Old story slip. Ava left the stand trailing citrus perfume. And outrage. David was called next. He moved like a man wading into cold water. "Mr. Carter," Ava's lawyer began, "you observed concerning behavior from your mother?" David swallowed. "Yes. She fell. She forgot a pot on the stove once." "Did that worry you?" "It did." "Did that influence your support for guardianship?" He hesitated, eyes flicking to me, then to the floor. "Yes." Nothing further. Daniel stood for cross. He didn't stride, he arrived. Quiet, lethal. "Mr. Carter, did your mother see a doctor after the fainting?" "Yes." "What did the doctor say?" "That it was dehydration. Not dementia. Not incompetence." "No. Thank you." Next, did you, within 24 hours of your mother's collapse, assist your wife in filming a video asking the public for money? Ava's attorney leapt up. "Objection. Assumes facts not in evidence." Daniel didn't blink. "We'll provide the evidence." "Overruled," Judge Rao said. "Answer." David's voice shrank. "Yes. And the timestamp on that recording?" He rubbed his thumbs together. "The day before my mom fainted." A soft rustle moved through the gallery. "Finally," Daniel said, sliding a sheet toward the clerk, "you attempted to reset your mother's bank credentials from your office Wi-Fi at 2:31 a.m., correct?" David's face drained. He looked at me, then at Ava. "No," he said. Then, softer, I left my laptop open. I wasn't the only person there. Who else?" He stared at his hands. "Ava." You could feel the temperature drop. No further questions. The social worker, Marina, testified next. Calm, concrete. She'd inspected my house, observed my routines, reviewed my medication plan. "In my professional opinion," she said, "Miss Carter is competent to manage her affairs and is living in a safe environment." The complaints appear retaliatory. Angela followed. She didn't sell drama. She sold timestamps. Security camera stills of a rented sedan idling at 2:17 a.m. outside my home. IP logs. The bank's fraud alerts. Screenshots of Ava's shopping spree, each circled in red like a teacher grading a lie. Ava's lawyer tried to rattle her. You were hired by the respondent. You're biased. Correct, Angela said smoothly. I am biased toward facts. Objection. Overruled, the judge said, almost smiling. Then came the flash drive. Your Honor, Daniel said. We move to admit Exhibit 12, a recording authenticated by metadata and by the testimony of Mr. Carter. He glanced at David. It captures petitioner discussing the donations and guardianship. Ava's lawyer lunged. Objection, illegally obtained, hearsay foundation. Daniel was fortress still. The recording was provided by a cooperating witness lawfully present during the conversation. It is a statement against interest by a party opponent. We have chain of custody and original filed data. Judge Rao reviewed the proffer, face unreadable, then nodded. Admitted. Play it. The courtroom speakers crackled. Ava's living room appeared on the monitor. Ring light, tripod, the careful mess of a set. Her voice, cool, professional. Of course I manipulated it. If you don't dramatize, no one donates. With her, everything pays. Relax. Guardianship will go through. David always signs. If not, I'll cry on live stream. A sound left Ava's throat I'd never heard before. A high animal keen. You doctored that, she breathed. You monsters. Counsel, the judge warned. Angela leaned toward me. Look, she whispered. The jurat stamp on the bottom of the paused frame, a tiny digital watermark, matched the software used by a boutique PR agency Ava sometimes worked with. We didn't have to say it. The judge saw it. Do you have any rebuttal evidence? Judge Rao asked the petitioner's table. Ava's lawyer paged through a folder full of confetti. We would request a continuance to... Denied. He swallowed. Anything else? The judge asked. Silence. Very well. She stacked her notes. I'll make some findings on the record. Every heartbeat in the room bent toward her. One, she said, voice even, the petitioner has failed to meet her burden by clear and convincing evidence that a guardian is necessary for Ms. Carter. The medical documentation indicates dehydration, not chronic impairment. The social worker's assessment supports competency. Ava's shoulders tightened, then rose higher, like wings about to beat. 2. There is substantial evidence that petitioner misused funds solicited in respondent's name and likeness. Accordingly, I refer the matter to the district attorney's office and the state charitable solicitation unit for investigation. Ava's mouth opened. No sound came out. 3. The court issues a temporary restraining order prohibiting the petitioner from using respondent's name, image, or likeness in any fundraising or broadcast. The court also orders the platform identified in the exhibits to freeze all disbursement and preserve records. A soft exhale rose behind me. Strangers, maybe donors, allowing themselves to breathe. 4. The petition is denied with prejudice. The court further awards respondent interim fees and costs due to petitioner's bad faith. Counsel, submit an application. Daniel's pen scratched twice. Yes, Your Honor. Ava's lawyer half stood. We intend to. Judge Rao held up a hand. You may appeal. Meanwhile, you will comply. The gavel didn't sound. It didn't have to. The order rang louder than any strike of wood could. Outside, sunlight hit the courthouse steps like a wall. A small crowd had gathered. Reporters I didn't recognize, donors with printouts of their receipts, a woman with a sign that read, Elder dignity isn't content. The young reporter who'd come to my gate the week before caught my eye and lifted her mic. I shook my head. Not yet. Ava tore down the stairs as if speed could make a tunnel through consequences. Cameras nipped at her heels. She kept her face a mask until a donor in a blue jacket stepped into her path. I sold my guitar to help your mother-in-law, the woman said, voice shaking. You bought a handbag. Ava blinked bright. This is harassment. Please step away. But the woman didn't, and the cameras saw everything. David stood under the shade of an elm, a man in a tie and wrong century. He stared at the sidewalk as if answers lived there. When he finally looked at me, his eyes were wet. I'm sorry, he said. I don't know what I expected to feel. Triumph? Relief? None of those arrived. Just a measured kind of grief, the kind that doesn't knock, but lives here now. Sorry as a door, I said. It only matters if you walk through it. He nodded like a penitent kid. I will. Angela touched my elbow. Let's get you home. We slid into her car. Only then did I remember the call from last night. The one labeled Francis, steady on my landline's ancient caller ID. Angela, I said. Does spoofing a caller ID like that take anything special? Depends. Why? I told her. She hummed. We'll pull the carrier logs. But your late husband's number. Did anyone else have access? An old office line, a VoIP account? David. The word left my mouth before I could call it back. He set up all of Francis's telecom stuff after the funeral. He said he'd modernize it. Angela's fingers danced across her phone. Then my guess is he used the label, maybe to make you answer, maybe to leave something without being traced. She glanced over. Or someone wants you to think it was him. Someone like Ava? She prefers lights. This felt like a shadow. When we turned onto my street, a police cruiser idled at the curb. An officer stood on my porch, hat under his arm, a brown envelope in hand. Miss Carter, he asked. We were asked to deliver this to you. Chain of custody. From the charitable unit. The envelope was heavier than it looked. Inside, a formal notice of investigation, a preservation letter to the platform, a subpoena list, and, tucked behind the forms, an anonymous donor complaint with attachments. Angela held the pages at an angle. Look at this IP address, she said. It's the same co-working office from the bank attempt. David's office. She flipped scan, froze. And this email, the handle is Francis Study 1971, at a burner provider. Whoever sent the complaint used that alias. The room rocked a half degree and steadied. So the call, I said. It was a breadcrumb. Angela's smile was small and satisfied. Or a confession. That night the house was quiet, cameras winking their red light like worried stars. I made tea, sat at the kitchen table, and read the order again. Denied with prejudice. Strong words. Real words. My eyes kept snagging on the line about referrals to the DA. Part of me, the part that still said an extra place at Thanksgiving, flinched at the thought of handcuffs near anyone I once considered family. Another part, the part that woke up on the floor with a ringing phone and no sun in the doorway, felt nothing but clean air moving through newly opened windows. At 10:24 p.m., a message arrived from an unknown number. I'm sorry. She's not going quietly. Be careful. Check your back gate. D. I stood, the old ache sparking in my knee, and walked to the mudroom. The sensor light flicked on. Through the pane I saw it. The back gate latch, jimmied, not fully closed. Angela had installed a sensor there too. The log showed it opened at 9:58 and closed at 10:01. No alert, because the app had been paused for 3 minutes at 9:57 by a login I didn't recognize. I dialed Angela. Someone was in the yard. I'm already on my way, she said. Don't go outside. I didn't. I locked the mudroom door, then the kitchen, then the hall, moving in a slow, methodical spiral that felt like prayer. I slid the bolt on the front door and returned to the table, because sitting was, in its own way, armor. My phone buzzed again. A video link, no subject line. The thumbnail was the side of a house, my house, shot at night from the alley, grainy and close. I tapped, breath shallow. The footage jittered, then steadied on my living room window. Through the sheer, I could see my own silhouette crossing the room, lifting a mug, setting it down. I shaped past the camera, hood, gloves, the brief flash of a tattoo on a wrist, and then the screen went black. For a moment, I heard only my heart, big and stupid as a drum. The phone rang. Angela already outside. Police are 2 minutes out. I've got the footage from our cams. This wasn't random. Who? I can't say yet. But look at the wrist in that clip. Send me the original file. I think I've seen that ink in Ava's videos. Her trainer? Her camera guy. Sirens slurred the air. Blue washed the curtains. I stood and made a choice that felt like a hinge. I dialed David again. He answered on the first half ring. Mom, thank you for the warning, I said. I didn't know she'd, his voice cracked. I can't control her. She said if the court didn't work, the internet would. That people who donate also. Stop, I said gently. You can't excuse what you're still defending. He swallowed. I'm done defending. If the DA calls, I'll tell them everything. I can't fix what I broke, but I can turn on the lights. A car door slammed outside. Boots moved on gravel. My doorbell chimed, polite as always. Then start now, I said. Tell me who dropped the flash drive. Silence pulsed. Then, Ava's assistant. She hates what this did to her own mother. She filmed the living room call. She slipped the drive under your door and used the Francis alias because she saw it on an old voicemail in my phone. She knew it would make you pick up. The call last night, that was me. I couldn't say my name. I thought you wouldn't answer. I picked up a pen, wrote his words down. Proof, even if only for me. David, I said, if you want to be my son again, bring me one thing. the password to the panel on Ava's ring light. He made a confused noise. What? It saves a usage log, I said. If we show it was set up before my collapse, it corroborates premeditation, not just drama. He blew out a breath. I'll send it. I hung up and answered the door. 2 officers stood on the porch. Behind them, Angela, fierce and bright in the wash of red-blue. We pulled footage from your new cams, she said without hello. We have a clear shot of the intruder's wrist tattoo. It's a geometric band with a split at the top. I closed my eyes. I'd seen that tattoo too, peeking from under a bomber jacket sleeve in dozens of Ava's clips. Her videographer, the one who bragged in comments about making weak stories viral. Name's Kyler, Angela said, reading my face. And I just found his handle in a thread where he offers content capture services, including street scenes. She raised a brow. He also rents a white sedan on the same account that idled by your house earlier this week. The officer took notes, then turned to me. Ms. Carter, do you want to sign a trespass affidavit and a stalking complaint? I looked at my hands, steady now. Yes, I said. And I want to add something to the statement. He waited. Write this. The internet is not a guardian. The court is not content. My home is not a set. He looked at me, pen stilled, then nodded. We'll put it in, ma'am. The night emptied slowly. The cruiser lingered for a while like a night light with a license plate. Angela stayed until just before midnight, checking logs, moving the hallway camera 2 inches to the left, because she said angles aren't a small thing when you're making your own safety. I'll come at dawn, she said on the porch, breath fogging in the cold. Bring coffee and the world's most boring bagels. Boring is good. I used to think so, I said, and she laughed and sobered. Are you okay? I startlingly was. Not happy, not even relieved, just aligned, like a picture finally plumb on the wall. Yes, I said, for the first time in a long time. After she left, I stood in the living room, looking at the window that had starred in someone else's footage of my life. I turned off the lamp. The glass showed me my own reflection for a second. Older, yes, but taller somehow. My phone buzzed. A text. A code. RLPX 8721. Under it, from David. Ring light log password. Do with it what you need to, Mom. I typed back 2 words that weren't forgiveness, but might one day be the scaffolding for it. Thank you. For a long moment the house listened. Then the landline rang again. The screen flashed the same label as before. Francis, study. I lifted the receiver. Hello. A voice exhaled. Not David's. Not Ava's. Not a stranger. Mrs. Carter, the caller said. Calm. Professional. Careful. This is Detective Ruiz, Financial Crimes. We've opened a case. I need to ask you about a video currently being traded in donor groups and a plan to make something happen if donations don't resume. I gripped the receiver. What kind of plan? The kind that turns sympathy back on, he said. A pause. We believe someone intends to stage a break-in at your home. It may be tonight. My eyes went to the bolt, to the cameras, to the shadow of myself on the glass. Detective, I said, please hurry. Detective Ruiz's warning echoed in my ears long after I hung up the phone. A stage break-in. Tonight. Angela arrived within minutes, her car still humming as she spread equipment across my kitchen table. Small wireless mics, extra cameras, even a portable hard drive for real-time backup. They want theater, she said, her voice calm but electric. Fine. We'll give them theater on our terms. 2 officers stayed parked down the street, lights off, ready. Ruiz had arranged a sting. The plan was simple. Ava's people would try to stage chaos for sympathy, but this time every lens would point the other way. At 11:42 p.m., a motion alert pinged Angela's tablet. Backgate. Same angle as before. A hooded figure slipped inside, phone light cutting across the grass. Showtime, Angela whispered. The intruder moved straight to the window, just like in the earlier video. But this time, when he lifted the camera, our floodlights snapped on with the force of daylight. The man froze, tattoo flashing on his wrist. Kyler, Ava's videographer. Police. Officers surged from both sides, pinning him to the ground. His camera clattered against the porch steps. Angela pressed record on her own camcorder. Tell them who hired you, Kyler, she said. He writhed, eyes darting everywhere, but at her lens. I just do content capture. Content for who? Angela pressed. Kyler's silence was enough. The tattoo glared in the light. Officers hauled him upright, wrists cuffed, as the neighborhood woke to sirens. But the real climax came an hour later, when Ruiz called Angela from the precinct. His voice carried the kind of restrained triumph I'd been starving for. We flipped him. He admitted Ava paid him cash to stage a burglary tonight, said donors were drying up and she needed a new arc. He also turned over voice notes she sent him with instructions. Angela's eyes burned. We need those files. They came the next morning. Audio clips of Ava coaching Kyler on angles, timing, even how to make me look frail if I stumbled into frame. Capture the shadow through the curtain, she said in one note, her tone clinical. If she screams, hold steady. Fear sells. My stomach twisted, but Ruiz smiled grimly. This isn't just fraud anymore. It's conspiracy. Attempted elder abuse through deception. And with donor money involved, it's wire fraud too. By noon, arrest warrants were signed. The arrest. Ava was live on Instagram when it happened, ring light glowing, lips painted in her trademark cherry red. We've been silenced, she told her followers, voice thick with false martyrdom. But truth always finds a... The knock cut her off. Sharp, official. The stream wobbled as she turned. Uniforms filled the frame. A detective's voice. Ava Carter, you're under arrest for wire fraud, elder abuse, and conspiracy. The comments exploded in real time. Wait, what? Is this staged? OMG, this is real. Millions of people watched her perfect mask crack as the cuffs closed around her wrists. Angela replayed the clip for me later. It's poetic, she said. She wanted viral? She got viral. David's choice. David called that evening. His voice was ragged, like a man peeling off skin. They came for her. I gave them everything. Texts, accounts, the fundraiser logs. I couldn't keep covering. You chose light, I said softly. I chose too late. Late, I told him, is better than never. There was silence, then a sound like a sob strangled in cloth. Mom, if you'll let me. I want to visit. Not to talk about her. To talk about us. We'll see, I said. And I meant it. The trial. The trial came fast, quicker than anyone expected. Prosecutors moved aggressively, armed with the recordings, the financial trail, Kyler's testimony, and Ava's own live streams. I sat through every day. Angela beside me like a sentinel. The jury didn't need dramatics. The evidence played like a grim documentary. Clips of Ava mocking donors. Old people make great storylines. Receipts of handbags bought hours after donations. Kyler's signed statement. She told me to scare Helen enough so she'd look confused on camera. When Ava took the stand, her charm evaporated under cross-examination. Did you profit from donations in Helen Carter's name? The prosecutor asked. I reimbursed expenses. Expenses like spa days. Her voice cracked. Caregiver burnout is real. The jury's faces were stone. Verdict guilty on all counts. Aftermath. Reporters called me the grandmother who beat the internet scam. Donors flooded my mailbox with letters, some angry at Ava, many apologizing for believing her lies. One note stayed taped to my fridge. You reminded me to check on my own mom. Thank you. David testified for the state. His cooperation reduced his liability, though not his guilt. When sentencing came, Ava received 5 years federal. David walked free but scarred. He came to me afterward, hands trembling. I know I don't deserve it, he said, but I'm asking anyway. Can we start again? I studied his face, the boy-eyed raised layered under the man who'd betrayed me. And I chose the heart of mercy. We can try, I said. Epilogue. 6 months later, my house is quiet, but it's mine. Cameras still wink red in the corners, not as symbols of fear, but of vigilance earned. Angela visits often, her laugh filling the kitchen louder than sirens ever did. Detective Ruiz still checks in, though he insists it's strictly professional. I bake him cookies anyway. David comes on Sundays. Sometimes we talk. Sometimes we don't. Healing isn't a sprint. It's a stubborn walk uphill. And me. I tell my story, not for views, not for pity, but so others see what I didn't at first. That betrayal can wear families' face, and dignity is worth fighting for. I keep the court order framed above my desk. Petition denied with prejudice. Those 4 words mean more than any fortune. The internet forgot Ava quickly. Influencers rise, influencers fall. But the people who mattered, the donors who cared, the neighbors who checked in, the strangers who sent letters, reminded me the world still bends toward justice if you push hard enough. The best revenge isn't getting even. It's standing in your own home, unbroken, saying, You tried to erase me. Instead, I became unforgettable. And if my story reminded you that dignity has no age limit, let it also remind you that your voice matters too. Don't let anyone silence it. Subscribe, and together we'll prove that courage writes the most unforgettable stories.